The Stoic Secret to Unshakable Emotional Control. Have you ever wondered why some people get betrayed, humiliated, pushed to the edge, and yet they don't break? They don't scream. They don't lash out. They don't even defend themselves. Instead, they stay calm. Almost too calm. As if nothing can shake them. As if they've already made peace with the chaos. But make no mistake, this isn't weakness. It's not detachment. It's emotional control, forged through discipline. Not born from luck, but from strategy. They don't fight every battle. They don't react to every attack. Because deep down, they know power is not loud. Power is still. And long before modern psychology tried to explain it, there was one man who mastered this level of control. A warrior, a philosopher, an emperor who led with calm in the middle of war. His name was Marcus Aurelius. And what he discovered can change the way you face every emotional storm in your life. How Marcus Aurelius stayed calm through hell. Marcus Aurelius didn't live a peaceful life. He didn't grow up in silence, luxury, or comfort. He was a Roman emperor, yes, but also a man who buried his children, lost his closest allies, and ruled through plagues, betrayals, and relentless war. At times it seemed like life wanted to break him, but he never broke. He never lashed out in public. He never begged for sympathy. He never let chaos dictate his state of mind. Instead, he picked up a pen and wrote, not for glory, not for others, but for himself. His private journal, what we now call meditations, wasn't meant to be inspirational. It was a blueprint, a strategy manual for one purpose: to stay unshaken when the world falls apart. You see, emotional resilience isn't about being calm just to feel better. It's not about suppressing emotions. It's about using clarity as a weapon in a world that constantly tries to control your mind. Because in a battlefield full of manipulation, noise, and chaos, he who stays centered wins. And Marcus understood that better than anyone. 6 Stoic tactics to become emotionally unbreakable. Emotional resilience isn't about staying calm. It's about staying in control. The Stoics knew if someone can control your emotions, they control you. So they didn't just meditate. They built tactics, sharp, deliberate, unbreakable. Not philosophy to admire, strategy to apply. Here are 6 Stoic tactics to make your emotions your weapon, not your weakness. Let's begin. First rule of inner gatekeeping: you feel what you tolerate. Here's a hard truth most people never hear. You don't feel what's done to you. You feel what you allow. Let that settle. Emotions aren't automatic. They feel automatic, but they're not. They're permissions. They only get in when you open the gate. Let me give you a real example. A friend of mine, tough guy, former military, told me how he trained himself to stay calm when being yelled at. In the army, you're constantly being screamed at, your appearance, your performance, your existence. But he said the most dangerous moment wasn't the yelling, it was the split second right after. That's where the gatekeeper lives, that split second. He told me I had to choose if that noise was allowed to enter me or bounce off. And that's what Stoicism teaches. Your emotions are like a guarded fortress, and you are the one deciding who gets through the gate. But here's the problem. Most people, their gate is wide open. Any look, any text, any comment. Boom, straight in. Someone doesn't reply to a message? They feel abandoned. Someone critiques their work? They feel attacked. Someone ignores them? They spiral, not because of what happened, but because they never trained their gatekeeper. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are pained by external things, it is not they that disturb you, but your own judgment of them." That's what separates the Stoic from the average man. The Stoic doesn't just feel less. He chooses what he feels. He doesn't build walls. He builds filters. He lets in what strengthens him and blocks what weakens him. So next time someone tries to provoke you, pause. Don't ask, "Why am I feeling this?" Ask, "Why did I allow this to affect me?" Because emotional resilience doesn't start with self-control. It starts with emotional standards, and the higher your standards, the quieter the world becomes. 2. Emotional warfare. Emotions are either weapons or weaknesses. Most people have no idea they're in a war, not the kind with guns, the kind that starts with a look, a pause, a message left on read. And it's not random, it's not innocent, it's intentional. See, people don't always manipulate you with lies. Sometimes they manipulate you with your own feelings. That gut punch you feel when someone suddenly pulls away. That flood of relief when they come back with just enough warmth. That's not connection, that's strategy. And if you've never been in that dynamic, I promise you, it's not love, it's control. I remember one moment clearly. It was 2 a.m. She hadn't responded to me in hours, something I would have brushed off before. But by then, I was hooked, conditioned, trained to feel abandoned in the silence and euphoric when she finally replied. She wasn't saying much, but my nervous system, it was saying everything, and I realized I wasn't responding to her. I was reacting to my own emotional leash. That's when I started reading the Stoics again, and something Seneca wrote hit like a punch. You are enslaved to whatever you cannot live without. That includes validation. That includes closure. That includes the emotional high you get when someone finally sees you again. Stoicism doesn't tell you to stop feeling. It tells you to own your feelings. Because if you don't, someone else will. So how do you take your power back? Not by being cold, not by pretending, but by noticing the pattern, by asking, am I feeling this because it's true, or because I've been trained to feel this way? That's where emotional warfare ends, not when you fight back, but when you stop playing their game altogether. Because once your emotions are yours again, you become untouchable. 3. Strategic delay. Delay is dominance. Don't react, don't explain, don't rush. In delay, power gathers. We live in a world that wants a reaction now. Someone insults you online, you're expected to clap back. Someone ghosts you, you spiral. Someone disrespects you in public, you raise your voice. And that's exactly what they want. They want you emotional, they want you flinching. Because once you react, you've already lost the higher ground. Let me tell you something I had to learn the hard way. Every emotional reaction is a transaction. You're giving them your time, your peace, your energy, all for free. But here's what the Stoics knew. You can't control the world, but you can control when you respond to it. Marcus Aurelius said, power over emotion begins with delay. Simple words. Ruthless truth. I remember getting blindsided once. Someone I trusted twisted my words, made me look like the villain in a room full of people I respected. I wanted to call him out, right there, right then. But something in me paused. Not fear, clarity. I walked away. I wrote down everything I wanted to say, but didn't send it. I waited 24 hours, and in that time, I saw everything clearer. What was worth responding to, what wasn't, and most importantly, what he wanted me to do. That's when I realized, the moment you don't react, you break the script. You take back authorship of the scene, because delay does more than protect your peace. It reveals intent. It shows you who's really trying to trigger you and who's just sloppy with their words. The person who can't wait to speak usually has something to prove. The person who can sit in silence usually holds the power. So next time someone tries to bait you, insult you, provoke you, don't take the bait. Buy yourself time. Sit in the silence. Let your restraint terrify them, because in that delay, your power compounds. Fourth, control, ignore, divide, the two-column Stoic rule. You suffer more from trying to control the uncontrollable than from the pain itself. Let me ask you something real. How much of your stress comes from things you actually have control over? Be honest. That text you're waiting on, that opinion someone has of you, that outcome you're trying to force, bend, manipulate into happening. You don't control it, but it controls you. And that's the trap. The Stoics had a simple, brutal rule. Two columns. What I can control, what I can't. That's it. No third option. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people live 90% of their emotional life in the second column. Let me tell you about someone I coached a while back. He was spiraling after a breakup, not because of what happened, but because he couldn't stop checking her profile, trying to read into every story, every like, every silence. His days were consumed by guesswork, by trying to interpret a world he no longer had access to. I asked him to take out a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle. On the left, what I control. On the right, what I don't. It was painful to see. The entire relationship, all in the right column, her feelings, her responses, her next move, her healing. None of it was his to touch. On the left, his breathing, his focus, his habits, his boundaries, his next step. That's where his power lived, and he'd been abandoning it for weeks. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. This rule isn't about detachment, it's about precision. You only have so much energy each day. Where you put it defines your reality. If you spend your energy chasing shadows, people's opinions, outcomes you can't force, things you can't fix, you'll stay exhausted and powerless. But when you ruthlessly invest only in the left column, your clarity returns, your confidence rebuilds, and your emotional resilience becomes unshakable. So grab a pen, draw your two columns, then do what most never do. Ignore everything you don't control. That's not avoidance, that's strategy. 5. The weapon of silence. Never argue, never explain. Silence is not the absence of response, it is the presence of power. Here's something you won't hear often. The loudest person in the room is usually the weakest. We've been conditioned to think that silence means you've lost, that if you don't argue back, they've won, that if you don't explain yourself, you must be guilty, that if you go quiet, you must not care. That's all noise. Let me tell you a story. A close friend of mine went through a brutal breakup. He didn't cheat, he didn't lie, he just pulled away. Too much pressure, too fast, too soon, and when it ended, she went on a campaign, talking to friends, mutuals, hinting online, subtweets, DMS stories aimed like bullets. He asked me, should I clear things up? Should I explain my side? I told him, don't say a word. Why? Because the moment you start defending yourself to people who already made up their minds, you hand them your dignity. You turn silence into a debate. You lower yourself to noise. And the Stoics? They had no time for noise. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. You don't fight fire with fire. You outlast it. You let their drama echo in a vacuum. You let their narratives collapse without your energy to feed them. Silence confuses manipulators. They expect reactions. They feed off your need to explain. So when you stay calm, stay quiet, they panic, because suddenly you're the one writing the ending. Silence is not avoidance, it's strategy. You're not ignoring the situation. You're choosing to not perform in someone else's theater. And when you stop explaining yourself to people who never intended to understand you, you step into a kind of emotional clarity that feels untouchable. So next time you're tempted to argue, don't. Next time someone twists your words, let them. Next time you're pulled into chaos, exit in silence. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing. 6. Transmute pain. Turn damage into discipline. You can break from pain or you can build with it. But either way, it changes you. Everyone wants to feel powerful, but no one wants to earn it the hard way. We all want peace, but without the pressure that forges it. Here's the truth the Stoics understood. Pain is not the enemy. Wasted pain is. I once met a man, early 40s, calm, grounded, intimidating without saying a word. He had this energy about him, like nothing could shake him. We got to talking, and I found out he had lost his wife in an accident. Then his business collapsed 6 months later. 2 hits, back to back. I asked him how he survived it. He said, "I didn't survive it. I buried who I was and built someone new." That stayed with me, because that's what Stoicism really is. Not a shield that blocks life, but a forge that transforms the worst of it into something indestructible. Seneca wrote, "Fire tests gold. Misfortune tests the brave." You can't become unshakable without first being shaken. You can't become disciplined without first being broken. Not entirely, just enough to realize you have to rebuild differently, and that's the choice. You can let pain harden you into bitterness or refine you into clarity. You can let it isolate you or make you more intentional with who you let close. The Stoic doesn't seek pain, but when it arrives, he uses it. He journals it. He structures his day around it. He builds habits from it. He asks, what lesson lives inside this? What can I become because of this? Most people react to pain. The Stoic recycles it, turns it into fuel. Because once you've suffered deeply and chosen to turn that damage into discipline, you become something very few ever become. Untouchable. Not because you're numb, but because everything that used to break you now builds you. Emotional resilience isn't a personality trait. It's a discipline, a decision, a daily practice. Let's be real. You're not watching this because you want to feel better. You're watching because you want to become stronger. And strength, real strength, isn't built when everything's calm. It's built in the fire. Here's what the Stoics knew, and what we've just uncovered together. You feel what you tolerate. Emotional standards are your first line of defense. Emotions are weapons. If you don't use them, they'll be used against you. Delay is dominance. Silence and timing are more powerful than instant reaction. Control, ignore rule. Your energy belongs only to what you can change. Silence is power. Not everything deserves your words. Some things deserve your absence. Transmute pain. Every scar can either harden you or sharpen you. None of these are just ideas. They're strategies. And more than that, they're filters. Because once you start living like this, a strange thing happens. People don't mess with you the same way. Their games stop working. Your silence starts speaking louder than their words, and your energy starts creating distance between you and the chaos. And that's the real Stoic advantage. You don't fight for control. You become the one no one can control. So here's your next step. If you're ready to go even deeper into emotional power, not just surviving conflict, but controlling the entire frame, watch the next video. The Psychology of Silence, why power speaks less. And remember, in a world that's always reacting, always loud, always triggered, the quiet mind stands tallest. The storm doesn't fear the loudest voice, it fears the one who watches and waits.